borrowing arrows from grass boats. In the late Eastern Han Dynasty, the wind on the Chibi River was always chilling. At that time, Cao Cao led an army of 800,000. Sun Quan and Liu Bei were forced to form an alliance, but still seemed weak. Zhou Yu, the Grand Commander of Jian Dum, but he was more wary of Zhuge Liang under Liu Bei. This Mr. Wolong has repeatedly offered brilliant strategies. Even Zhou Yu's proud water warfare deployment were easily seen through by him. Zhou Yu summoned Zhuge Liang for a meeting on military affairs. The candle flames in the tent were flickering, reflecting the thoughts of the two. Now our army is short of arrows. Zhou Yu spread out the ordnance book with his fingers. With a seemingly earnest tone, the craftsman in the army estimated that, to produce 100,000 arrows, it will take at least 10 days. But Cao Cao could attack at any time. Sir, do you have a good plan? Zhuge Liang looked up outside the tent. The river wind blew in with water vapor. He gently rubbed his beard with his fingertips. He pondered for a moment and then smiled, saying it would take too long. For fear of missing the military situation, I predict that within 3 days, I can gather 100,000 arrows for the governor. Zhou Yu heard this, was secretly pleased. He had already calculated that it was impossible to make arrows. If Zhuge Liang fails, he could be dealt with according to military law. To get rid of this confidant, he immediately stood up. He asked in surprise, "Sir, are you serious? If you can get 100,000 arrows in 3 days, it will save Jian Dum. But there is no joke in the army. Sir, do you dare to make a military order?" "Why not?" Zhuge Liang picked up the pen and signed the order. Ink was dripping, without any fear. 3 days later, at dawn, you can send 500 soldiers to the river to fetch arrows. After Zhuge Liang left, Zhou Yu immediately summoned the quartermaster. He secretly instructed, for all the wood, feathers, glue, and paint that Zhuge Liang needed should be delayed, so that even if he wanted to make arrows, he couldn't start. He thought that with this arrangement, Zhuge Liang would surely lose, but he didn't know that Zhuge Liang never intended to make arrows. That night, Zhuge Liang quietly visited Lu Su's tent. Lu Su and Zhuge Liang had a long-standing friendship. Seeing him visit late at night, he led him to the inner room. "Brother Zhuge," Zhuge Liang got straight to the point. "I have made a military order today. I need your help." Lu Su looked worried. "Sir, do you know that the governor has secretly ordered to cut off the materials for your arrow making? How can I gather 100,000 arrows in 3 days? I don't need to make arrows. I just need to borrow." Zhuge Liang smiled and handed over a list. "Please prepare 20 fast boats for me, with 30 soldiers on each ship, and tied bundles of straw on the ships, on both sides of the ship. This must not be known to the governor, otherwise the borrowing of arrows will be in vain." Though Lu Su was full of doubts, he still nodded in agreement. He always respected Zhuge Liang's wisdom, knowing that this person never does anything uncertain. For the next 2 days, Zhuge Liang drank and played chess in his tent every day, as if he had completely forgotten the order, which made Zhou Yu, who was observing, secretly anxious. The people sent by Zhou Yu reported that Zhuge Liang neither urged for materials, nor called for craftsmen, only occasionally looking at the river. Zhou Yu became more certain. Zhuge Liang was at a loss. On the 3rd day's early morning, before dawn, there was a sudden fog on the river. The fog was so thick that it couldn't be dispelled. Within 10 miles, people could not be seen clearly. The river wind wrapped in fog, blowing on people's faces, chilling to the bone. Zhuge Liang woke Lu Su up early and invited him to board the ship. "Brother Zhuge, come with me. Today we will borrow arrows." 20 fast ships were already waiting by the river. The straw bundles on both sides of the ship were densely packed, like rows of soldiers standing. Zhuge Liang ordered to connect the ships with ropes, and slowly sailed towards Cao Cao's camp. Lu Su stood on the bow, looked at the white fog around him. His heart was in his mouth. "Sir, if the Cao army notices, wouldn't we be throwing ourselves into a trap?" Zhuge Liang sat calmly in the boat, holding a feather fan, and shook it gently, smiling. "Don't worry, brother, on such a foggy day, Cao Cao is suspicious by nature. He will not dare to send troops easily. If he sees our army beating drums and shouting, he will think we are attacking. He will surely order to shoot arrows to stop us. This is just a gift for us." In the meantime, the fleet had approached Cao Cao's water village. At Zhuge Liang's command, the soldiers immediately beat the drums and shouted in unison. The sound echoed in the fog. It really had the momentum of a large army approaching. The sentinels in Cao's camp indeed noticed the movement and quickly reported to Cao Cao. Cao Cao was getting dressed at the moment, hearing the enemy's attack, and walked to the front of the village to look. He saw the fog on the river and could vaguely see the shadows of enemy ships, but he didn't know how many troops they had. The fog was thick, and the enemy's situation was unclear. Cao Cao frowned and pondered. "If we send troops rashly, He feared being ambushed by the enemy. Pass my order to all crossbowmen to line up by the river, just shoot arrows, and not to fight. Suddenly, the arrows from Kar's camp fell like rain, shot towards Zhuge Liang's fleet densely. Most of the arrows fell on the straw targets on both sides. The green cloth was densely pierced by the arrow shafts, like a hedge of thorns. Lu Su was stunned by the scene. His originally hanging heart gradually eased. He couldn't help but praise. Sir is really a god. He could predict the thick fog, and also figured out Cao Ca's thoughts. Zhuge Liang remained calm. When one side was full of arrows, he ordered to turn the ship around, and let the other side be shot. The soldiers followed the order. The ship slowly turned. The empty side faced Cao Ying, and soon it was also filled with arrows. About an hour later, the fog gradually dispersed. Seeing that the straw target was full of arrows, he ordered to sound the retreat, and returned. 20 fast ships were fully loaded with arrows, sailed towards the camp of the Sun Liu coalition along the river. At this time, the archers in Cao Ying realized the enemy's ship was full of their own arrows, but it was too late to pursue. Zhuge Liang's fleet had already sailed a long way. The soldiers were still shouting on the bow, "Thank you, Cao Cao," to return. When they returned to the river, it was already dawn. 500 soldiers sent by Zhou Yu were already waiting. They had counted the arrows. Each ship had at least 5 or 6,000 arrows. 20 ships added together, there were 120,000 to 30,000, far exceeding the number of 10,000. When Zhou Yu heard the news, he personally went to the river to check, looking at the arrows piled up like hills. He remembered Zhuge Liang's calm 3 days ago. He couldn't help but sigh. He sighed and said that Zhuge Liang was so clever. I'm not as good as him. Later, the story of borrowing arrows from grass boats spread. Later, with the spread of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, became a famous story. When people talk about this past event, people always say that Zhuge Liang's wisdom, not only in accurately predicting the weather and understood human nature, but also that he could find a new way in a desperate situation, instead of competing with Zhou Yu for arrow-making ability, but instead took advantage of Cao Ca's suspicion, easily completed the seemingly impossible task, and the thick fog on the Chibi River seems to have become a testimony of wisdom. Let future generations understand, true wisdom is not about recklessness, but to judge the situation and take advantage of the situation, just like Zhuge Liang. He used the fog as a barrier, and used Cao Ca's arrows to break the game. He found a way out of seemingly unsolvable predicament.
本音频由魔音工坊 AI 生成。